Jack, how are you?
Hey, Tim. I'm good. How about you?
I'm good. I'm good. I've been noticing something I'm sure you have as well. Women's sports is having a moment.
I thought women's sports has been having a moment since since the soccer team.
Probably one of the catalysts. I mean, it's not just in attendance, okay, around all of the sports that have been created. Some have been longer term, some are less than 3 years old. The major media companies in this country are all now making long-term bets around these sports. So the hype is loud, but the contracts are louder. Just a couple facts. Let me give you some facts. So the NBA deal, 11 years, $2.2 billion. The partners are Disney, Amazon Prime, and NBCU.
Wow.
The salary cap, average team salary cap from 1.5 million to 7 million a year plus revenue share.
Wow.
That's WNBA. That other league they have, the 3-on-3 called Unrivaled.
That's David Levy was involved with that. Our friend David from
Yep.
Horizon Sports and Entertainment,
Yep.
former Turner president.
Right. That is big enough now to where these ladies do not have to go to Europe for
Right.
5 or 6 months in the off season to make enough money to actually make a living. They can do the WNBA and Unrivaled, and that's it. So that is fantastic.
It's amazing.
Women's soccer, $250 million multi-year deal, ESPN, CBS, and Prime.
You know, my friend Karen Nortman was one of the founders of the LA soccer team, LA Angels, I think. They're getting like 20,000 people in the stadium.
Right. And they're building for the first time dedicated stadiums for this property.
Wow.
That's never happened. Women's hockey this past weekend, the PWHL sold out Madison Square Garden.
No kidding.
And this is a couple-year league that's already scaling. And then the last one, tennis, which has maybe already always been a little bit ahead, continuing to get record prize money for the WTA, the Women's Tennis Association. Fun little family fact. My father in 1973, as director of advertising services for Bristol Myers, was the one who wrote the first check to make the prize money at the US Open the same.
Wow.
For ban.
What year was that?
What year was that? 1973.
Wow.
They call it the ban equalizer. So ban one of the products. He literally signed the check. Since then, Clairol came on, and with Virginia Slims was really the big one. And then Clairol was the sub brand, and they really took women's sports. But fun little fact. Anyway, this thing is having a moment. It'll be interesting to see which media companies and which brands can turn that moment into more of a movement.
When was Billie Jean King and Bobby Rigg?
73 or 74. The battle of the sexes at the Astrodome.
I remember I went to the launch. I must have been with CBS then, but I went to the launch of Billie Jean King launching team tennis, women's team tennis. Mm-hmm. And that was such a big breakthrough then. And then, it's been so slow to evolve, but boy, this is long overdue, Tim.
Maybe one fact no one cares about, but yes, World Team Tennis that she helped launch. The song Philadelphia Freedom by Elton John, her friend, is literally a song in tribute to her.
How nice.
Fun little fact if people didn't know that. All right, that was my little...
Did you talk about flag football at all?
No, that's both sports, and I don't know enough. Yes, that's interesting.
Women, I think there's a women flag football now, too, or forming.
Yeah, because it's a medal event in LA 28, in the Olympics.
Oh,
it is a medal event.
Men and women?
Yes, and so
I wonder if they'll make that
co-ed.
Yes. I wonder if that's a co-ed opportunity.
It's not co-ed.
Yeah, I wonder
if it's not in the games
at some point.
That might be, like curling. We've got a men's, a women's, and then we got a mixed.
How could curling be so big? It's amazing to me.
So it's just, I just wanted to bring it up today because I just think it's interesting.
What a great topic. And Tim, before we start the show and introduce our guest, I just want to encourage our audience to go to the theater to see the movie, The AI Doc, or How I Learned to Be an Apocalyptimist. It's really, and it's only in theaters. It'll be on Netflix or Peacock probably in 2 or 3 months. But anyone who's thinking about, is AI the apocalypse or is AI the best thing that ever happened to humanity? That's what's explored in this film, and it's really, really worth seeing. I was kind of depressed, and then I was excited, and then I was depressed, and I kind of left trying to figure out where I am in the whole mix, and that since you and I are so engaged in the humanities aspect of technology, I think it's really relevant, and we'll probably have a longer talk about it in one of these future conversations, Tim. I really enjoy this.
So you've seen it. I will definitely have to see it. And I'm glad you shouted that out because it's on all of our minds, and good. I'm glad we need to do that. We need to do the work. We need to be curious and always learning. All right, let's jump in.
We shall.
Greetings, humans. Welcome to Lead Human. I'm Tim Spengler, along with my partner, the prolific author and futurist, Mr. Jack Myers. We're part of the ACAST Creator Network. And each week, in about 30 minutes or so, we aim to prove that despite all this important conversation about data and dashboards and AI, that the real competitive advantage in business today is not about better managing the machine, but about unleashing the human potential. And this is Lead Human. Jack, tell us about our guest today.
Tim, I met Camille Fetter at an Athena Project event. That's the organization created by Rashad Tabakawala and Drew Ianni. She's the CEO of TalentFoot. It's an executive search firm headquartered in Chicago, but with global outreach, really executive recruitment. And what really attracted me and why I wanted to invite her to join us is that one of the things she spoke about as an executive recruiter is empathy is the input and executive search is the output. So empathy is core to her belief in what she calls the transformative power of personal fulfillment. So I thought she'd be a great guest, and I'm really grateful that she agreed to join us, and we can bring her in.
All right, let's welcome Camille. Camille, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tim and Jack.
Hi, Camille. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for letting me be here with you both.
Now, this is going to be fun. All right, let's jump right in. First question we like to ask every guest is a grounding question. And it's a question not about what you do, but about who you are. So tell us, what's it like to be you, and who are you, Camille?
Well, thank you for the question. So I'm a mother. I'm a partner. I'm a friend. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I am a business owner. I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an investor. So I wear a lot of hats, and it probably explains why I'm tired most days.
So go a little deeper into the who you as a person.
So I am an individual who cares deeply about other people. I started my real desire for wanting to make an impact in people's lives when I worked at a crisis line in college.
Mm-hmm.
Those were sexuality calls, domestic violence calls, suicide calls. I ended up tracing 2 suicides, got the police there in time. And I realized, wow, the power of conversation can truly change the trajectory of someone's life or even save their life. So really, that's who I am at my core is I'm a helper, I'm a fixer, and I just want to make the world a better place. As before my time is done.
That's so cool. So in preparing for this and getting to know you better, I feel like you're a very passionate person, and you're incredibly lean forward, like physically, as well as I know mentally. So my question is, as you look at all these great leaders, because this is a show about leadership and leading human, and as you look at these great leaders, are those 2 qualities, this passion and the lean forward, are those essential ingredients, or is that just a style?
I think it's just a style.
Okay.
And I will say, because I see leaders every day who are so passionate about their businesses and the problems that they're solving, but they forget that in order to be an effective leader, you need to care about people. People will move mountains for you if they feel cared for, right?
Yeah.
I know it's a topic that you both are very passionate about. So I think, I also see a lot of leaders who are burning the midnight oil and they think that they just need to crank the 80-hour week out. And then they have their energy is drained. And when your energy is drained, you can't give back to others and you can't see people for who they are, which is human beings, right? And if you don't see your workforce, your clients, right, as humans, it's really hard to do meaningful work that's sustainable for you and for those that you serve.
So that's more important than that's more that caring is to you is for a leader as you're looking at them, much more important than the passion or the lean forward.
I think it's a trifecta. I think you need to have all of it, right? So I have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs that come to me and say, "Well, what does it take to be a successful entrepreneur?"
This is what we want. This is what we want.
All right. And I say, well, you know what? It's you've got to have the passion for something. You've got to have something that you want to solve so badly, right? For a customer that you cannot wait to get out of bed every day, no matter how hard it may be, that there is a purpose behind wanting to solve that problem for the end customer. And if you don't have that passion, that burning desire to solve that challenge for that customer, then the business will never be successful.
So, Camille, being a helper, a fixer, the passion that you have, take us through the path that for you, how that translated into the work you do today.
Absolutely. So I solve problems every day, right? And so where I spend most of my time is on the hiring side. So organizations will come to us and they'll say, we need a chief revenue officer. We want to double in the next 2 years, right? And then when we start to really peel back the onion, we realize that organization, they had no actual growth thesis behind that statement, behind that goal, right? And so they'll say, well, what do you mean? We need a growth thesis. We want to double in the next 2 years. Well, without that thesis and the how you believe you're going to get there, I can't help you identify the right human, right, to solve that problem and to accomplish that business outcome. So, I see every day, opportunities that these businesses have a real opportunity to scale and grow, but I spend my time in the gap between the business outcome they're looking to achieve and the who.
So talking about the business outcome, and I like that you said the best human as opposed to the best leader or the best executive, you put it in human terms. And you've said that executive searches the output of your work, but the input is empathy. So empathy is a word that, of course, Tim and I use a lot. It's a word that, we also, a few years ago, you rarely heard in business. And today, thankfully, we hear a lot. Where does that fit into your not just the business, but into your own psyche and how you approach the business?
Yeah. So, gosh, I have to show up as a leader for my people, as a servant leader every day, right? And I've built a culture where people love coming to work every day. And it's because they feel seen, they feel heard. We believe ideas can come from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not just talk, right? We live by those principles. We live by those values. I am also a vulnerable leader. So I will share what's going on in my life because we know what's going on outside work impacts work and vice versa, right? And so I want to make sure that those who show up here at the firm every day know that they can bring their full self to work. It was about 7 years into my career when I realized I was purely exhausted having two different versions of myself.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. I'm curious if you both can relate to this. So I would have professional Camille, right? And then I would have personal fun Camille, right? on the weekends and, at night. And I realized, oh my gosh, this professional, Camille, is really exhausting. It's draining at the end of the day, right? And so one day I woke up and I said, okay, you know what? I'm just going to have one version of myself. I'm going to show up for my clients, my candidates, the businesses I serve as one person. And that's when my career skyrocketed, took off in my line of work.
How old were you at that point? Like, how long had you been in the business before you had that revelation? And
I was 7 years in.
Okay, so pretty relatively new.
And you move the personal into the professional as opposed to the professional into the personal.
I just showed up as me, right? I was more human, right? I was in client meetings and I would share what I did over the weekend. I would ask about their weekend. I would crack a joke or two, just being me, right? Instead of, I need to wear the pinstripe suit and I need to be, a bit stoic and just take the order and get the job done, right? And I found that people, they want to work with people. They don't want to work with just a brand and a business. They want to work with other humans. And so, and obviously what we do is very art and science. So bringing your whole self to the job really did make a big difference for me.
That's cool. I love that. You have a quote, which I really like. I think it's worth us exploring. You say, resilience is not something you're born with. Unpack that a bit, because I think people look in the mirror, they hear that word a lot and they look in the mirror about it. And you're like basically saying you don't have to look in the mirror, just go. But anyway, you tell us, you tell the audience.
Yeah. So we say something in our house, to our kids, why do you fall down? And they know how to answer it, to get back up. And so I think it's a mindset, right? And when you scrape your knee as a kid, right? Do you get all of the attention in the world and you get comforted and you go on the couch for an hour, or do you say, you know what, your parent says you can do this, get back up on the bike, shake it off, right? I think there's a balance, right, in terms of the world of parenting there, but I do believe that tougher times make us stronger. I believe that when business leaders are faced with challenging moments, they're either going to rise to the occasion and they're going to have 10 times the amount of lines of learning through those challenges, or they're going to cave and they don't learn much, right? So I believe that it's through our trials and tribulations and triumphs that we build resilience over time.
So don't look yourself in the mirror and say, I don't have it. Nobody has it. They develop it.
Absolutely. With experiences.
Right.
And honestly, falling down.
Cool.
Camille, vulnerability is another word that has been used to describe what many men don't necessarily have and should bring to their professional lives. Yet, in my own experience, and I think many others have discovered that when you bring vulnerability to your work, that it doesn't necessarily fly. It's not necessarily well received in a professional environment. How do you coach people who both want to be more vulnerable in their professional lives, yet are confronted with a reality that perhaps vulnerability is not necessarily going to be successfully perceived?
Yeah, I would ask that. I would have that individual ask themselves, are you relatable? Do your people relate to you? And if the question is, I'm not sure, right? Then the first best step to being vulnerable is sharing something that they can relate to. Something, we all have our struggles. And we have so many of the same struggles, right? And it's our challenges and our struggles that actually bring us together as humans, right? And it's what makes us relatable. And if a leader's workforce can't relate to them, it really does impact the nature of the work, the productivity of that team, the desire for them, again, to move mountains for that leader. So I would have that individual just explore what is maybe one aspect of your life outside work that they can relate to, whether it's, Oh my gosh, we had swim meets all weekend and had to get up at 6 a.m. every day. And it's, we can all find ways to relate to each other. So it's not it's not coaching them to share their deepest and darkest secrets, right? But just inching forward to just be more relatable.
I like that because it's not black or white of are you vulnerable or not. That may be a bridge too far. And what you're saying is you don't have to be vulnerable, but you do have to be relatable.
Yes.
I like that. That's cool. Question about management success that I also have seen you talk about. And it came up in our conversation with Dave Pensky, who leads media around the world for Publicis. And he's like, look, you got to have a vision. You got to have a where we're going. You got to have a kind of how we're going to do it. But then you have to have incentives in place for the people to go do it.
Yes.
And it doesn't just like, there's three things there, right? And any of those can be skipped. But on the compensation piece, whether it's collaborative behavior, whatever the KPIs are, right? They could be financial or they could be softer metrics. Talk a little bit, if you would, about how you advise companies and leaders to when that's really important and then when maybe it's less important. And I know in a sales culture, obviously the number is really important, but you can go deeper than that with that.
Sure. I would argue that it's important in every culture, in every business. So I'm writing a book right now. And the concept is hiring is not HR. And one of the final chapters in the book is compensation. And
whole chapter on this. Wow, cool. Okay.
And the message really is compensation is what incentivizes behavior. Right. And so, I think it's important for every function. Sales is an obvious one, as you shared, but every role should have measurable KPIs, right? I don't care if you're the receptionist, right, at the business. Every single role in the company should have some kind of way to measure the success, right, of that role, that individual. And employees crave that. They want to know if they're doing a good job or not, right? So depending on what those KPIs are, compensation should translate to the success and driving the right behavior to meet those KPIs.
So you're saying that almost everybody should have a base plus, regardless of what the base is.
Yes.
Right. Jack?
It's interesting in that context. A lot of KPIs now are about change, are about adapting to AI and technology. In a business world where change and transformation has become critical to success, yet predictability, quarterly numbers, and performing against kind of past performance measures are not necessarily complementary. How do you balance the need for change and transformation with the need to deliver financial results?
Yeah, so we have scorecards for every interview slate, of candidates through a search process, and then we design a position scorecard. So after you get the job, how is your position being measured? And so change management may be on that scorecard for that one individual, but they're also going to have a scorecard for the present day, right? And so, the most effective leaders can plan for tomorrow and really also focus on the mandate today, right? And so it's a matter of time management, how they spend their time. So I wouldn't say it's one or the other. You really, as a leader today, need to be able to really juggle both.
That's really interesting because a lot of leaders today just were not trained for change and transformation. They were trained for delivering on their fiduciary responsibilities to the quarterly results. So what are you seeing emerging or evolving in terms of helping those leaders adapt to today's realities, plus in terms of the new qualities of young people just coming into the workforce?
Yeah. So for the seasoned executives who really need to hone these new modern leadership skills, which is embracing AI, I tell them, don't wait for your organization to host trainings and seminars on these tools, right? And this digital transformation that we can 2.0, frankly, that we're all experiencing. You need to take the initiative and spend the time. I mean, there's endless content on YouTube, right? To learn these skills, but really take your own education into your own hands, right? So don't wait to be taught, told, or directed on what you need to learn. You need to be talking to other leaders outside your organization, finding out where they're spending their time and energy from an L&D standpoint, and really take the time to invest in yourself, right? And then and I will tell you, we are incredibly busy right now, and a lot of it is because organizations were waiting for their leadership teams to drive the change, and they're not seeing the change fast enough. Especially if they're under the gun with private equity and there's a timeline, right? So they're like, all right, if the leadership team isn't stepping up and able to really drive the change, we're going to be looking for a chief AI officer, a chief innovation officer, right? Or a new president or CEO that has a change agent pedigree in their background, right? So, and then for the next generation, to answer the second part of your question, Jack, we're also telling this next generation, lean into everything AI. You can really drive a lot of change and be much more marketable to organizations with an AI forward skill set. So we're seeing organizations actually hire interns right now to really document processes and procedures within the organization that they then can hand off to agentic AI, right, to run autonomous. So it's a really interesting time to obviously be a great student, and don't wait for somebody else to show you the way.
So Camille, I think that's interesting. You were saying that some of the work now you're doing is because the current management isn't moving fast enough to create the change. Totally get that. What does that look like? It's been 6 months, we haven't seen enough. It's been 12 months, we haven't seen enough. I mean, you come into a job, you need to understand it. You need to have a mastery of the core business. That's not a given, right? I got to spend a lot of time on that because it's a competitive world. Maybe I inherited something that wasn't perfect, right? So I'm not saying I caught a falling knife, but maybe I inherited something that needed fixing in the core. Now you're telling me I haven't moved fast enough in the change. From a timing standpoint, whether it's senior management or boards, what do you mean? What's the time frame to where they're getting judged in this way?
Yeah, if the mandate a year ago was drive ABC change, and here's your position scorecard, how you are going to be measured against that change, they don't see real measurable impact from the changes that leader was tasked with within 12 months, they're calling us.
Okay, so it's 12 months. It wasn't like 6 months in. It's more like we look back after a year. And I think that's the scorecard you said you leave companies with, right? You have your own hiring scorecard you mentioned, right? But then you have one that you recommend they might use, or you work with them so we're all on the same page about what the person I've just brought in that you've chosen is going to go do now.
Exactly.
And they come back to that.
Revisited every quarter. Are you on or off track against the annual plan and the quarterly plan?
You recommend they revisit every quarter, but TalentFoot is gone at that point. Is that right?
Yeah, we're there in the background checking in. How is it going? Are we on or off track? Right. But no, hopefully the executive onboarding program that organization has implemented, they know they've got to check in every quarter with their leader, right? And the new hire against the position scorecard.
Right. Okay.
There's a continuum here in terms of the process. So let's move to those who are later in their careers, either recently out of work or perhaps concerned about being out of work, and may not have the skills or even the adaptability to take on the skills needed in an AI world. What's your advice?
Again, there's more hours in the day outside 9 to 5. Find the time to learn and take in as much content as you can. We're a sponsor of Section School. It's an online AI academy for leaders. It's phenomenal. But YouTube has endless free content as well, right? And following AI influencers on LinkedIn. And there's a book, I don't have it here, I usually have it on my desk. Jeff Woods is a friend of mine. He wrote The AI Driven Leader, exceptional book. There's just no shortage of content out there again. So be your own advocate for your own learning.
One of the things that I recommend for those people is to go into ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini and just say, ask the question, what should I do? What can I do? What do you recommend I do for career? And let it be your guide. It does a pretty good job. Or also something as simple as using it to draft a letter to a potential employer. So you mentioned the academy. What is your take on the state today of education and the qualifications of students who perhaps are either just graduating or in the midpoint of their college life and maybe not getting the preparation for the next stage of AI-led business?
Yeah, it's not an easy time for new grads right now.
Right.
I know that, and I empathize with that. So, I believe even if you're graduating, raise your hand for an internship, right? Show an organization what you're capable of. Take on project work. Get to know your parents' friends, what they do. Offer project work, right? Just find any way to showcase your skill set. And start forging relationships with those in the field that you're interested in pursuing.
My son Ryan is right in that place right now, graduating from college. He's trying those things. I think he's doing a pretty good job at those things, but it still isn't easy.
No, it's not.
Anything else? Anything else for Ryan Spengler? So so internship, parents, friends. I think you said one other thing right at the front.
Yeah, just, even just Facebook groups, right? I'm looking for project work. This is my skill set for the local community, right? There's a lot of business owners in your local community. And when they can see, oh, this is Tim's son, right? Reference check done, right? So, I just think, you have to get out there, go to industry events.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to network, right? As we all say, your network is your net worth.
Right. I love that line.
And so, you've got to get out there. You've got to get, we like to say this next generation, they're on their phones all day. They think that that's how they're going to land their next job. You've got to get out there and start forging relationships and use those interpersonal skills to be relatable and be likable, right? People want to work with people they like and that they relate to. I just think that they've got to get out of the dorm room, out of mom and dad's house, and get out there and shake some hands and kiss some babies.
Jack, we just got wisdom there for people in this age who are at the end of their career and just starting at the beginning of their career. I love that.
And there's a lot of parallels.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone more senior is looking for what do I do next, you're at the beginning of repositioning your career, reinventing yourself. So I think that's an interesting reality. It may be the first time in history that experience is less valuable than the training that some young people may have just by having grown up with technology. So it's an interesting time. You've really brought a lot of wisdom to our audience,
Yes,
which we really appreciate. You care about people. You grew up the experience you had with a crisis line work in college. You're a helper. You're a fixer. You want the world to be a better place. I think we all really, especially today, wish for that. You bring passion and you help others have passion in their careers and understand the importance for entrepreneurs of having a clear problem that they're solving, something they're passionate about, something they wake up every morning excited about. Resilience is something you learn, you don't necessarily have. Relating to people, you kept coming back to the importance of finding the path to relate whether it's to an individual or to a career or to a company or within your own family when you're dealing day to day. The connection between your personal life and your professional life and how to be one person. You've said a couple times, just do it. Just
Yes.
do it. And
Yes.
learn, go to YouTube, do whatever's necessary to really prepare yourself for this next phase that we're going into. Those are all pearls of wisdom.
And thank you. Thank you.
We thank you for that.
I had a couple, but he covered them all. He doesn't let me do any of the recaps and because he just has them all. So there we go. Did we miss any? Well, let me ask. I think he got them all. Did we miss any ones that you want to underscore before we end out here?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, we said a lot of things, so not that we're holding you as a test here, but maybe something, maybe not.
Sure. I would just say find your soul fuel, right? Find what really fuels you up and fills you up, right? And if you really can focus on unlocking those passion points and those areas of where you have deep curiosity, you follow your heart and you no doubt will be successful.
Love it. All right, we're going to end it there.
Soul fuel. I think you gave us our headline with soul fuel. I love that.
There was a number of headlines. That might be the one, but there was a lot of good ones. So Camille, thanks again.
Thank you both.
Let me thank the audience now for listening. If you learned anything or felt anything from this conversation with Camille today, and I'll bet you did, please go ahead and share it. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and help us on this mission now with Camille to lead human across the world. Because as we talk, this is a business conversation. In business, the competitive advantage in business is not about better managing the machine, but more about unleashing the human potential. And this has been Lead Human.